I'm Tom from Do It Yourself Home Automation, and I'm here today to talk about the Dr. Brown's bottles. So if you have a kid and you're looking for the best bottle, this is my choice for the best bottle that's out there at the moment, the Dr. Brown's bottles. I've used these with all of my kids, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about why I like them, show you the different parts, how to select the one that you want to use, and all the different pieces that you have to get that go along with it. And I'm also here to answer any questions that you have. This is a live stream, so if you're here live with me, feel free to ask any questions about the Dr. Brown's bottle, and I'm happy to answer those live here on the chat. So let's take a look at the basics of the Dr. Brown's bottle here. This is the 8-ounce size, so you can look at the side of it, and it's got a scale here where it's going to tell us the size of the bottle, which is 8 ounces for this one. It goes up to 8 ounces. You can also get a 4-ounce size, and that's going to be for a younger baby, or if you want to have something that's like a little bit more portable than this full 8-ounce. And you can get these in a 4-pack. I've highlighted that. You can see down in the carousel below. You can see the actual product there. The Dr. Brown's set of 4 of these bottles. And these are really high quality. They're BPA-free plastic, which is obviously really important. And one of the things that I really like about them is that they have this anti-colic setup. So I'll break this down. We can take a look at the different parts of it, learn about what all of that means, and also how to choose the right nipples, how to choose the right pieces, the vents inside. We'll talk about this. Bottles can get kind of complex. You know, there's a lot of different things to consider when you're choosing bottles for your kid. So we'll try to look at as many different aspects of this as possible. So firstly, here's the bottle itself. And you can see that it's got the bottom piece here. We're just going to unscrew. And let's take this apart and look at each of the pieces in turn. So I'm going to put these down, and I'll bring them back up to show you each of these parts. And I can do this, probably do this with my eyes closed at this point. I've done it so many times. I can probably pop these off one-handed at this point. So let's take a look now at the different parts of the bottle. So you've got the basic actual bottle here where you put in your formula or your milk. Then we've got this vent, and the advantage of this is that it lets some air in as your kid is drinking, and that prevents them from inhaling a lot of air while they're drinking from the bottle. And Dr. Brown says that can help to prevent colic, gassiness, other kinds of issues. If you're just joining me, this is live, talking about the Dr. Brown's bottles. Feel free to ask any questions you have on the chat on the right, and I can answer those questions live. So we've got the bottle itself here, and then we've got the different individual pieces. We've got the vent, and again, I showed how you can assemble this. It goes into here, and then this just drops into the bottle. And you can actually use it with or without the vent. I always use the vent. It's not that hard to add that in, and it lets some air in to the side here as your kid is drinking. This is, yes, see a comment from Caitlin. I need these. I'm 7 months. Do you mean 7 months and you're expecting? So you're choosing a bottle, or do you have a 7-month-old baby? Feel free to answer in the message. And I'll keep going along here. I can definitely help you learn more about these. Any questions that you have, either way. Expecting, congratulations. That's wonderful. So yeah, that's it's always really difficult to choose the right bottle. And I would definitely try to get some in advance. If you're going to have a newborn, then this is probably going to be a little bit on the large side, but it's definitely usable for that. You might want to get the 4-ounce bottles from Dr. Brown's, and it's going to be a much smaller bottle, better for a newborn. This is you know, taking your kid all the way up to 6 to 9 months. You can always, though, just fill it part way. So I use these with my baby. It's not a problem. So what I like about these is that it has this anti-colic attachment here. So you can put this vent in, and then I'll show the tops of the bottle here. There's a ring, and then there's the nipple. This one is a size 3. For your baby, you're probably going to want to start with a size 1, or you might want to start even with a preemie size. And that's going to be a level 1, they call it. And I believe that when you buy the pack, you can see the pack down below in the carousel there. I believe it comes with a size 1 nipple, so it's sort of like a starter version there. And the difference is just the flow rate. So with a higher level, then the baby is going to be drinking faster, and that can, if they're drinking at a size that's too fast, then they can get too much of the milk or formula, and that can be hard for them. They can get spit up and that kind of thing. So you want to size the nipple appropriately to the age. And if you're starting out with a newborn, again, depending on when they're born, hopefully they're full term, then they'd be probably a size 1. However, some people do use a preemie nipple if their kid is sort of more prefers to drink more slowly. I mean, some kids, they just want to drink more slowly. They're a little bit slower when they're getting started. So the preemie can actually work for a newborn too. I would get probably the size 1 nipples and the preemie nipples and just see what, and hi, I see Olivia joining here. I would get, talking to Caitlin, had a question about she's expecting and wondering, about the bottle here. Dr. Brown's bottles is just saying for a newborn, you probably do want to have, again, that size 1 and a preemie and just see which one they prefer. Start out with the preemie size. If it seems like it's taking too long and they're getting frustrated drinking from this, then go up to the size 1. You could try the size 1. If you're getting a lot of spit up, a lot of colic and that kind of thing, then go back down to the smaller size. Let's see. Oh, I see. It looks like maybe a thing that was pasted in there by mistake. That's fine. So yeah, let's take a look a little bit more, and feel free to ask any other questions that you have in the chat there. So we put this vent in, and this is one of the signature things with Dr. Brown's. This is why I like these bottles better than the other ones, because it does allow the air in. You get a lot less air that the baby is swallowing, and so there's going to be a lot less of the colic and gassiness and that kind of thing, less of a need to do burping. So this definitely helps for that. You do have the option to use it without. I always actually use it with. I was saying earlier that I've done this so many times I could probably do it one-handed, breaking this down and putting it together. You definitely get a lot of experience with using these. So this drops in to the top of the bottle, and then you put the nipple into the top here. This goes onto this ring, and then the whole thing just goes on top of the bottle and screws into place. And you just want to tighten it. They can leak if you're not tightening it fully, but it's a really good setup. And then they also do come, I don't have it with me, but they do come with a lid that clips onto the top. And that's a good way to protect this from dripping if you're putting it in a diaper bag, or if you're doing, you're going out and about with it. It's nice to have that extra level of protection. The nipples themselves are silicone, so they're high quality. You can wash them. A lot of people sterilize them before the first use, so you might want to put them in the dishwasher on a sanitized setting, or a lot of people choose to boil them. Obviously, with any of this stuff, you want to check with a pediatrician and see if there's any specific concerns for your baby. If they need to be using a sterilized bottle or sterilized nipple, you want to boil all these parts when you first get them. I've highlighted down in the carousel there the specific pack that this came from. Definitely buy a lot of these. Don't just get like 1 or 2, because you are going to want to be cleaning them very routinely. So things are going to be in the dishwasher a lot. The 4-pack is great because you can get a couple of them. That's why I chose to highlight that instead of an individual one. You can get a couple of them, and you can use probably 4. You'll probably use 4 a day easily if you're not sanitizing them, especially if you want to boil them between use. Break down all the parts, put them in boiling water, keep them in there for 5-10 minutes. Let them cool, obviously, completely before you use it. And that's an easy way to sterilize. I usually just put mine, honestly, in the dishwasher with a sanitized setting, and that gets hot enough that it's able to really kind of clean these out. If you're just joining us here, I'm talking about the Dr. Brown's bottles. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. This is a live stream, and I'm happy to answer any specific questions that you have about these Dr. Brown's bottles. Again, BPA free for all the plastic, which is super important. You don't want to have anything in there that could be potentially harmful. But again, when you do first get them, you do want to probably sterilize them, certainly clean them in the dishwasher before starting to use them. Some of the things I really like about the Dr. Brown's bottles, they're very narrow. Some of the ones that are out there are these super wide necked bottles, and I find that that can be kind of challenging if you're trying to put them in a cup holder, trying to put them in the side of a diaper bag. This actually works really well. Super easy to put into a car cup holder, easy to put into the side pocket of a diaper bag. And if you do put a cap on the top of it, you can put that even in a pocket or something, and it's super easy to be able to use that on the go. Any questions, if anybody has any specific questions about the Dr. Brown's bottles, please feel free to ask them down in the chat there. If you want to check out the product, I highlighted it down there in the carousel. You can click through, check out this particular one. But that's one of the reasons that I like them better than some of the others out on the market, is just that it's really narrow, easy to carry around, and it's not something that's going to be super wide. And one thing I would say is every baby has their own preferences and their own style of bottles that they like. This has always worked well for me, but it's important to try a few and see, what's going to be the best fit for your kid, and particularly to find out what flow rate they like in terms of the nipples. So I talked about this a little bit already. This is a size 3. The size 3 is for a 6-month-old and up. So I'll just pop this out. You can see a silicone nipple here. You can buy these separately. I like to get a lot of them because they do wear out over time. This one is pretty new, but you can see the size is actually marked on the side there. So you can see that this is a size 3. It goes for a 6-month-old and up. I actually find a size 3 is pretty effective for even an older kid, like a 9-month-old up to a year. Depends on the flow rate, again, that they want. So if you're feeding a huge bottle like this, 8 ounces, probably appropriate for like a 9-month-old to drink that much at a time, then this is going to take forever. If you're using a size 1 nipple or a preemie, that's really designed to be a slow flow. It's for a kid that's just learning to start to use a bottle, and it's going to give them a little bit at a time. It's going to overwhelm them if you try to use something that's a size 3, and they're going to be probably having spit up. They're going to be drinking too much. So start with a lower size nipples, work your way up. But then I find you can often stop at the size 3 nipple here and just continue to use that use that for a kid all the way up to 9 months, 12 months, unless they really want to be drinking a ton of formula or milk, then this can work up to a pretty good age. If you're just joining us, I see there's some chat. Looks like people might know each other in the comments here. Feel free to ask any questions that you have about the Dr. Brown's bottle, or just to ask each other questions too. I'm happy to weigh in on anything, any questions that people have here. I've used these for years now. You do want to swap them out periodically. I find that the parts that wear out fastest are actually the nipples tend to wear out fastest, especially if you're using these in the dishwasher. These can kind of wear down over time. They can get stained, and obviously your kid will grow out of using them. So I tend to try to get rid of those fairly regularly, replace them with new ones, sterilize them by boiling them before getting started. And then these parts, these usually hold up pretty well. The vent on the inside and the stopper that goes into the top of it. Those do tend to last for a longer time period. And the bottle itself, this is probably the longest lasting part. So I have some of these that I've probably had for over a year, and they do still work totally fine. I put these in the dishwasher. Some people like to use a special bottle sterilizer, or probably the simplest, most effective thing, people like to just boil them. So just put them in boiling water, keep them in boiling water for a time period, and sterilize them like that. One thing you do get along with the bottle here, you actually get a little like a little brush, almost like a pipe cleaner. And one thing you can run into as an issue is that milk or formula can get stuck in the vent here, and it actually helps to take the pipe cleaner thing and kind of clean that out. It's like a little brush that goes through here. I see some people have just joined us. We're talking about the Dr. Brown's bottles. I highlighted them down in the carousel below, so if you want to check out the product itself, you can click there and take a look. This is live, so feel free to put any questions that you have into the chat. I'm happy to answer them live about the Dr. Brown's bottles. And one thing that's neat about these, I mean, it's kind of beefy, fairly easy kind of thing to work with. And as I said, I've done this so many times, I can probably do it one-handed with my eyes closed. Let's see. So you take the top part off here, take the vent out. This is really good if you're going to be, doing this at night. Obviously, you got these two pieces off, and then the vent part here, you just break that off and put it back on. So obviously, if you use these for many years, as I've done, it becomes easier and easier to do this process literally with your eyes closed or one-handed. So what's so amazing about these bottles? Thanks. Yeah, definitely an acquired skill. So yeah, if you're in your baby's nursery at night, you don't want to turn the light on. I like that it's easy to put together, even though it's got all these different parts. And so what's so amazing about these bottles? A couple of things that I think are really amazing about these bottles. The anti-colic vent, I think, is the best thing. So a lot of the time, if your kid is drinking from a traditional bottle, and it's basically just going to look like this, it's a nipple on the top of a bottle, and you can use the Dr. Brown's bottles like this too, but very low tack. This is just full of formula or milk. They're drinking, and it's just giving them as much as they want, and they're trying to breathe and drink at the same time, and there's sort of air coming in, and they can end up with a lot of spit up and colic, and it becomes a problem for a lot of kids. So the nice thing with this vent in the Dr. Brown's bottles is that it actually sits inside of the bottle here, and it has this little air hole that lets in some air as they're drinking back into the bottle. So they don't have to be trying to kind of drink and then pause and wait for air to flow back in and then drink and pause. They can just keep drinking continuously, and that little hole is going to let air in through the top here so that it refills inside the bottle, and they can just continue to be drinking continuously from it. And I find that works really well. It's, I think, good for anti-colic, good for avoiding gassiness and spit up and that kind of thing. But I think it's also just really helps them to drink from it. It's easy for them to figure out how to do it, so you're not having to kind of get them to figure out that whole process of drinking, stopping, breathing through it, letting air back in. Think about if you're drinking from like a water bottle and it doesn't have a vent, where you have to take a sip and then kind of open your mouth and wait and let the air come back in and then take another sip. That prevents this. Let's see, I don't know how to kid, now I know what bottle to get, thank you. Do I press the contact thing? What do you mean on the web here? So yeah, just below the live stream, there's a link to the specific set of bottles that I would recommend. I think you should also see a link if you want to follow me, see more of my reviews and live streams. You can do that here on Amazon. But if you want to take a look at the bottles, the link is just below. If you click on that, the Dr. Brown's baby bottles, the 4-pack there, you can see it's reviewed 5 stars. You can click through on that, and that's the specific set that I would recommend starting with. I was saying to people earlier that you want to get at least 4 of them. I would say I would actually get 2 of those and have a lot of them. I like to have a lot on hand because when you have a baby, you don't always have time to sterilize everything, and they're going to be drinking a lot of these throughout the day. And most formula, most milk, you don't want to leave it in the bottle for more than about an hour once they've started to drink. So you're constantly opening these, taking the pieces apart, either using a bottle sterilizer or putting them in the dishwasher. And if you have just like 1 or 2, then you're just going to spend so much time each day doing that. So I find that it works a little bit better to get maybe 4 to 8 of these bottles and to basically just use them throughout the day. The end of the day, break everything down, put it all in the dishwasher into your bottle sterilizer, wash it overnight, maybe have 1 ready for nighttime feedings, and then you're ready to go the next day. So you want to have enough that you can kind of be cycling them out. The one thing you want to be aware of, what do you mean by the contact thing? It's a good question. If you have a specific question there, happy to chime in on it. But yeah, so these are the individual pieces. One thing that's a little bit challenging with cleaning these is because it's more complex than a traditional bottle. You can get formula, like I mentioned earlier, that gets stuck inside of the tube. These can start to get some formula or milk that can get stuck inside of the vent. So you do want to make sure that you're cleaning them out really well. In the dishwasher, if you have a dishwasher that has a sanitized cycle, I find that usually works really well, or periodically just boil the whole thing, break everything down, put it into a pot of boiling water, clean it off, or use the bottle washer specifically to do that. I think Dr. Brown's does offer some of those as accessories. I don't have it in the carousel here, but they also have a dishwasher caddy that works really well, so you can actually put these into the dishwasher in this special little container, and it keeps them in there. It breaks down all the different pieces so that you can clean all of these really well. Again, use the little pipe cleaner thing that comes with it. You'll get one of those in the 4-pack that I've highlighted below, and you can actually use that to clean out the inside of this vent periodically if formula or milk gets stuck. This is a bottle I've actually used plenty of times though. This isn't a brand new one, and you can see it cleans off really well. There's nothing that would suggest that that this is something I've used before, because it does get really clean. And that's another thing somebody had asked, what's amazing about these bottles in particular. I think that the anti-colic features with the vent really sets it apart. The size, because it is this narrower design, it's not those wide bottles with a super wide nipple on top. I find some kids just have trouble actually drinking effectively from that. And it's also hard to store those in a cup holder. This is this narrow design. It's really easy to transport, to bring around, and also the parts I find just hold up really well and are easy to clean. So I don't like some of the bottles where everything is kind of hard to sterilize, hard to clean. One trick that I find works really well for the nipples, that's the part that I find gets dirtiest. You can actually just take the nipple off and then periodically just reverse the whole thing. So you're pretty much just pushing one side through to the other side. And you don't have to do it all the way. The last part is kind of a challenge, but just open it up like that. Put that into the dishwasher like this, or boil it like this, and when you're done, just let it cool and pop it back to the other side. And that'll clean out anything that got stuck, any bacteria or anything that might be stuck inside of the inside of the nipple here. I would just throw these out and replace them though periodically. The nipples you can buy them separately. You'll find that you'll probably lose them, or they'll get damaged over time. Depends on how your baby feeds, but I do recommend swapping these out periodically. And these are definitely readily available. You can get them in a separate pack. It comes in a little plastic bag. Just break them open, boil them the first time, use them along with Dr. Brown's bottle for subsequent uses, and you're good to go. Any other questions? We are live here, so any questions that you have about the Dr. Brown's bottles, please feel free to put them in the chat. I'm happy to answer any of your questions live here. I'm just talking about some of the different features. For those who are just joining us, let's talk a little bit about the different size of nipples and which one you want to choose for your kid, because I think that can get kind of confusing. So again, you've got the basic part of the bottle, you've got the vent on the top here, the ring that holds everything in place, and then you've got the nipple at the top. So this, I'm going to hold it up so you can see, is a size 3. Let's see if we can get the focus going. You can see the 3 on the side there. So this is for A, and so while we're here, actually, you can see this is made in Germany, and it's silicone, so it's a really good material, and it's nice to know it's made in a European country. Anyway, this is a size 3, so this would be for a 6-month-old and up, but depending on how old your kid is, you're going to want to get a variety of different sizes of the nipples. And I would start if you have a newborn. Some people who are on the chat, I don't know if they're still here, we're expecting. So if you're looking for your first set, I said earlier, I would definitely recommend get the preemie size and get the size 1 or level 1. And that, I believe, is what will come with the bottles here that I've highlighted. And you can get the size 1, and that's appropriate for a lot of newborns. The reason I say to get the preemie size, even if you don't know if you'll have a preemie, hopefully everything goes according to plan, and people's babies are born at term. But if you did have a baby who's born earlier or is just smaller, then it's useful to have the preemie size. And then some kids just have a preference for a particular size. So some kids like a slower flow just from the beginning. They're a little bit overwhelmed, or when they're first starting, Even the level 1 can be too much for them. So if you're getting a lot of spit up, a lot of burping, that kind of thing, then it is nice to start with the preemie and then work their way up even to the size 1. Size 2 or level 2 of the Doc Brown's nipples will take them from 3 months up to 6 months. Size 3 is 6 months up to 9, and then size 4, and there's also a Y cut, it's called, is a 9-month and above. And just, again, it's just the size. You can see, let's see if we can even see it on the camera here if it focuses. There's a tiny hole you can see at the tip of the nipple there. It's a little bit hard to see, but maybe you can see it just in the middle there. And that's where the actual formula or milk is going to be flowing through. So the size of that hole is going to determine the flow rate. And the larger size or levels of nipples just have a bigger hole at the top. So it's going to have a faster flow rate. And again, if you have a newborn and you give them a size 3, they're going to be totally overwhelmed by that. They'll probably end up drinking too much, and then you'll get spit up and you'll get other kinds of issues. So you want to size the nipple appropriately to your kid's age and just their preference. Some kids like to drink really fast, some like to drink more slowly. So you want to make sure that whatever you're giving them is appropriate for the size that they are and the flow rate that they personally prefer. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. You know, again, it is definitely a personal preference, and you'll just get to know with your own kid what size they like and what ends up being appropriate for them. One thing I would note, though, is that you don't necessarily have to upgrade to a larger size beyond a certain point. I would keep upgrading until you reach 6 months and you're at the size 3 nipple here. But once you get up to beyond that, up to 9 months or even a year, you can actually continue with this, and this can work fine. So the downside to a larger one is that your kid's going to drink faster, and that can just mean they can overeat sometimes too. And especially after usually 3 to 6 months, obviously check with your pediatrician, but you'll probably be starting to introduce solids anyway. So they're going to be drinking less formula or milk potentially, and so having them drink it faster doesn't matter as much. The kind of corollary to that is it depends on what size you want or what speed you want your kid to be drinking. So if you're giving them too small of a nipple, say they're maybe 6 months old, and you're giving them a size 1 or a preemie, it's going to be too slow for them. And they're probably going to get frustrated that they can't drink quickly enough, or they might get bored, they might fall asleep. So you don't want to go for someone that's too small either. You want to size it appropriately with the Doc Brown's bottles for the particular age of your kid and their preference. If you go too small, you'll have less spit up, but they'll also probably fall asleep. They won't drink as much as they should. If you go too big, then they might drink too quickly. And again, you might have those issues with spit up, gassiness, and just overeating overall. And particularly if you're trying to introduce solids and you're using too big of a nipple and they're just drinking a ton of formula, then they probably are not going to be that interested in the solids, and it's going to be harder to introduce those. Obviously, check with your pediatrician, make a plan with them. But that's one thing to keep in mind with a larger size on these nipples. If you're just joining us, we are live here. So if you have any questions about the Dr. Brown's bottles, please feel free to put those into the chat. If you want to check out the ones that I recommend, then take a look at the carousel below. There's a 4-pack that I've highlighted there. I think that's a great starter pack because it has everything you need to get started. The bottles, the inside vent, the tube, the ring, and then I believe it comes with some size 1 nipples to get you started there. One thing you can see here when I put this on, the vent got to be a little bit crooked. If you notice that happens, just open it again. Probably what happened is you didn't put the lid on all the way. So you can see here this is a little bit crooked. I'll just put that back in, drop that in again, and then screw this back onto the top here. Useful to have on the side, there's actually a scale, so it's going to tell you the amount of formula or milk that you've put into the bottle, and you can get it in milliliters or in ounces. In the US, most people are probably going to be looking at the ounce scale there. And one thing that's nice with these is if you get the size 8, the 8-ounce bottle here that I've highlighted down below, you can use that for even a younger kid. So you could start by giving them whatever amount your pediatrician says to do at one feeding. For a lot of babies, that might be 1 or 2 ounces in the beginning. So just filling to one of these very small lines, and then this can last you all the way up until they're 9 months or even a year if you're still feeding formula or milk at that point. And you can feed water in here once they reach the point that they want to be having water, and they're allowed to have water. So you can feed a lot of different things in the Doc Brown's bottles, and it's nice for that as well. It's not just for formula and milk. But if you start with a size 8, it's a little bit bigger. You might want to go for the size, the 4-ounce instead if you find this is just too big to carry around for a newborn. But it's very economical because you can get a set and you can take these and use them all the way from when your kid is a newborn all the way up until they're drinking 8 ounces at a sitting. Maybe they're 9 months to a year old and they're drinking this full bottle in one sitting. It's going to seem crazy if you have a baby and they're drinking 1 ounce or 2 ounces at a time if they're ever going to get to this point. But trust me, it happens really quickly, too quickly, I think, in some cases. You miss the times when they were drinking the 1 or 2 ounces. This is great because it'll last them all the way through that time period. The bottle itself, I think, definitely will hold up. The ring and the vents definitely will too. The nipples are again something that you can swap out as they get older. So that's one of the nice things with this too. Also economical to have an option where you can basically upgrade this, change the sizing on it as your baby gets older, and you don't have to throw this whole thing away, with shoes and clothes and everything else having to do with babies as they get older. You can start with this one size, and you can basically just upgrade it as they grow, get the bigger size nipples, but keep the rest of the bottle intact. One other option, if you don't feel like bothering with cleaning these all the time and your kid doesn't have a lot of issues with colic or spit up or gassiness, you can use this like a traditional bottle. Just put the nipple onto the ring, use it right on top of this. I find that works fine. One thing that's also helpful to know is that the nipple and the ring can be used on a normal formula bottle. So if you have a pre-mix formula, you can often put these right on top of the bottle and feed with this. I find it works a lot better than the really cheapo nipples that tend to come with those formula bottles by default. So that's the Dr. Brown's bottles. If anyone has any final questions, feel free to ask them. Again, happy to answer. If you found this helpful, if you want to see more of my baby product reviews, other reviews, please follow me. You should be able to follow me below and check out the Doc Brown's bottles in the carousel right underneath the stream here. I'll answer any final questions anyone has. Otherwise, thanks so much for joining me to talk about Doc Brown's bottles. We'll be talking about all kinds of other things. If there's other products you want to hear about, feel free to let me know. I'm happy to answer any of your questions about other kinds of baby products. But thank you for joining me for the stream.